Okay. I really appreciate y'all doing this.
Well, I was saying that everything that they've said so far, it makes perfect sense, because when you view reality from separation, then that is where you can also see sin, for example. It's the idea that like you're trying to live up to being virtuous. You're trying to live up to being Christ-like.
Still ego consciousness.
Yeah, so that's the separate self. Whereas whenever you actually feel that oneness with God, then you're no longer trying to be virtuous.
Right.
Virtuous is your nature, because you are seeing with the eyes of unconditional love. You're feeling with the heart of unconditional love.
Yeah. You're seeing from the eyes of unity consciousness versus individual separate person doing something.
Because whenever you see as from the lens of separation, then you have to try to love.
Yeah.
But whenever you see from unity consciousness, then love is your nature. It's only natural.
Right. Yeah, right on. I feel like when they're talking about Jesus and cutting your right hand off, it's still, they are interpreting his words from the individual self perspective. And I think what Jesus is saying is that like your devotion to holiness has to be above everything else. It has to be above your desires. But I don't think he literally means like cut off your hand. I think Jesus is saying the kingdom of God is far more rewarding than staying in sin. Mm-hmm. But again, he uses the word sin, and he's a first century Jew that doesn't have complex words like consciousness and non-duality, you know?
Exactly.
So whenever he says things like Father, you know, sin, is he literally meaning those things? And I think when you look at Jesus' teachings, it's very clear that Jesus is pointing towards more of a oneness message, and that the words he uses in order to describe what he's talking about sound dual, and that's because all words are dual. You can't say words that adequately describe the nature of God, because a word implies separation. And so I think Jesus was fine in exactly what he said, because it's the nature of words to be dualistic. But I think he's using these dualistic words to point towards a non-dual message.
That's the thing about the paradox. Like, it is true that sin is an illusion, but sin is also not an illusion.
Right, it's not an illusion if you believe in it.
Well, it depends on which side of it you're looking from. If you're looking at from the perspective of separation or the perspective of unity.
You're so right. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because we experience sin in separation if we believe in that and we're operating from ego consciousness. There's all sorts of insane stuff that happens when your inner values are not aligned with oneness, with love. And so I think, again, that's a great point, that within the lens of ego consciousness, it makes sense that sin exists, because the experience of it is real in the sense that you're experiencing it. But on the overall bigger scale, there is no person to experience that, because the individual person doesn't exist.
There is no person to be guilty.
Right. Wow.
I'm saying like nothing that they're saying is wrong. I mean, what they're saying is from the perspective of ego consciousness. Everything is rationally coherent. Yeah. Like, these are some smart dudes. Like, it's all just a different perspective of reality. Whether you believe that you are a separate self and the rest of the universe is outside of you, or if you believe that you are one with the universe, that you are the universe experiencing itself, you are reality experiencing itself, you are essentially a way that God is perceiving itself.
Yeah.
It's a completely different way of looking at it, but depending
on
which
sides of the same coin.
Depending on which way you look at it, which perspective you take, then there's going to be different things are going to make sense, different things won't make sense. But the beautiful thing about the unity consciousness perspective is that unconditional love is not something that you strive to do. It's something that comes naturally.
Right. It's also not something you actually have to believe in either. The shadow work addressing the conditioning allows your true nature to reveal itself. And so you don't have to believe that you are everything and believe in oneness. You get to experience what it's like to be everything. I think that's the distinction between non-duality and these other belief systems, is that non-duality can appear like it's the separate belief system, but really it's like this underlying reality that is beyond belief.
It's beyond belief.
And
exactly.
I think the nature of God it's not concepts, it's not words, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, non-duality is raw perception without judgment.
I like what Connor said about a experience beyond sensory perception.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like pure awareness. This guy's beard is like dope though. I wish I had his beard. It affects Peter because if Peter is still perceiving and thinking from the individual self perspective, that's going to show up in his experience, and there's going to be more division and less connection in his experience. So that's why it would affect Peter. Again, it's just coming back to words, in that what we're trying to describe can't, the non-dual message is not words, and we can only point to awareness. And I think this awareness is the place Jesus was talking from. But to be a human and to convey a message, you have to use dualistic words.
Two distinct things that are going to happen.
So these are other people that are not Jesus, interpreting Jesus' teachings, and they're saying, if you believe in Jesus, right? But because we think Jesus' message was non-dual, when it says believe in Jesus, I hear that as believe in Jesus' teachings, not as him, the ego, the individual person that is special from other humans.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, by believe, it means more like understand.
Mm-hmm. And again, like, I would definitely agree that there's a lot of words in the Bible, a lot of books that point to original sin. You know, I've read the whole Bible, and so it's not that I'm ignorant of what y'all are saying, but I think what I'm saying is that every person that is interpreting Jesus' teachings are coming at it from an individualistic ego consciousness, and they're still perceiving separation, when I don't think that's what Jesus' true message was. It just depends on if you're taking Jesus' words literally true, or if you are looking beyond the individual self and seeing the oneness that he's clearly pointing to, and that he was experiencing this oneness that he was talking from in his teachings. And I think that's more self-evident than him being this individual ego. Hey, okay, so I just finished the video. So first, I care about y'all because I am y'all, right? And so the fact that I can have this experience of separation doesn't mean that the fundamental nature of reality isn't oneness and that I can't enjoy this experience. But also, I've said before at Ratio Christi that the experience of God I'm talking about, of being completely immersed in God's presence, is beyond conception. It is beyond our limited cognitive ability that the human mind, it's beyond reason. Words are inherently dualistic. And once you move past belief, once you move past concepts, you see that there is nothing left but the pure, raw, unconditional love, bliss, abundance. That is God's nature. But again, I just use words to describe God's nature. And so all we can do is point. I'm willing to talk more just because I enjoy the conversation and I don't feel like I need y'all to think how I think. But I think my whole point is this experience of oneness is beyond concepts, beyond words. And everything y'all are saying about sin is true from the limited individualistic ego perspective. I think what he was saying is just, it's two sides of the paradox. Y'all are just looking at it from the lens of separation, and we're looking at it through the lens of oneness. If we are holding rationality to like the highest order, and that is just full of concepts, what we're talking about is a feeling, an experience of the truth of oneness. When you're not in trans-rational consciousness, all you can see is separation, because that's the nature of the human mind. It's the nature of the ego. I said that weird. Truth is beyond words. I think reality is beyond words. God is beyond words.
Beyond rationality.
Yeah. And as unintellectually satisfying as that is, the feeling of being uncertain is what I think it means to truly walk in complete faith. Because, again, if you're trying to rationalize everything and you're seeing it from separation consciousness, you're just trying to save your own back because there's eternal punishment. And so you're trying to have a relationship in order to avoid eternal punishment. And even if you don't look at it like that, in the back of the fundamental Christian mind, when there is this threat of hell, it's very hard to not think egotistically. It's almost like a higher form of spiritual ego, where you've taken your attention off your mind and body, but now you're still focusing on yourself and on this individual soul that is going to burn in hell forever. And I think when you experience oneness, there is no doubt in your mind that it is just unconditional love that is always there, willing to pick you up, and that's what your true nature is. It's this feeling, it's this experience beyond rationalization. There's one other element to consider. About a month ago, there's a Nobel Prize in physics that was awarded to 3 guys, and basically what they showed is that the physical universe is not locally real, which basically means that, like, on a subatomic level, there's this randomness to it. There's no definitive qualities, and when we observe those subatomic particles, it changes how they react. And so this bleeds in perfectly to why we experience a sinful world, is because when we're thinking in terms of division, we're going to create more division, because reality responds to our intention. And so I thought that's a kind of cool way to get some quantum mechanics up in there to explain the experience of separation. Yeah. I mean, do you have anything closing to say?
Love you guys.